It's time for another year of gathering get together. This month, our theme I'm so excited about. I feel like we need a drum roll. We're doing Little Women. I have never read the book before, but I am reading it right now. Let's see if I can get it finished in time for the party. We are a week and a day out from our party. We're having it quite early in the month, so it's a quick turnaround from our last one, the circus party, which was so fun, but it was a bigger party and there were so many details. So this one is going to be a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate, and tea parties are my jam, so I'm really excited about it. I saw several people sharing over Christmas that they were doing a Little Women inspired Christmas, which is such a nice theme, but we are doing March Sisters for March, and I think that's going to be really fun as well. So we're going to do like lots of spring and floral touches, which should be really beautiful and fits perfectly with a tea party. I have watched both movies and loved both movies, and now that I'm reading the book, some of the details from the book are also inspiring me. First off, the menu. We're going to do a traditional tea party menu. So first course of finger sandwiches, then we'll do scones with jam and cream, and then we'll do some sweets. I've actually had a lot of fun sort of researching ideas from the book and where they lived in New England and the year the book was published to figure out our menu. I am not a really strict stickler that everything has to be from I believe it's 1869 the book was published, but in general we'll try and keep it kind of vintage vibes. That goes for the food, and that also goes for our table, and then we're gonna have some fun little details that represent each of the sisters. I am inviting 3 people, so there'll be 4 of us, which I think is kind of perfect for the March Sisters since there was 4 of them. So on that guest list is of course my own sister and then 2 of my good friends who feel almost like sisters to me. I'm excited to hang out and have tea with them all afternoon. To make the party feel Little Women and not just like a tea party, I wanted to include some thoughtful details from each of the sisters. So I'm imagining a typewriter for Jo. Did they even have typewriters back then? Well, we might need to Google that. Some paints to represent Amy, some sheet music to represent Beth, and then I wasn't sure about Meg. In the movies, her talent is maybe acting, and I didn't know how to represent that very clearly. But one idea was to include some gloves because there's a lot of drama around having proper gloves and her suitor taking one of hers. And I had these already, so I was like, that's perfect. And then I also thought I would include some sewing things because all the girls sew. But in the book more, this is one of Meg's sort of artistic expressions. I'm gonna host the party in my kitchen here. I like that it's a little more cozy than the dining room, a smaller space. And I have this little back area where I can put some of the Little Women decor, which I think will be really fun. For the table, I'm going with all my beautiful vintage china. I just got this little one with the rosebuds at a thrift store, and then I have others, but I couldn't resist this one, which I did not need, but I loved the pretty pink stripes. Our color scheme is definitely pink, floral, and then bits of like soft green and yellow and maybe blue or bluey green. So that's sort of the palette we're in. I'm not sure about napkins. I have these ones that I thrifted about a month ago, which would be really pretty because they have the flowers. I have some mismatched floral ones. I I also have somewhere some really vintage embroidered ones, so I'll pick something out of that. I recently picked up these placemats, which I think will be fun, and I still need to decide exactly, but I'm thinking maybe to use these vintage luncheon plates because they're a little bit smaller, or I might go for like just mismatched china. I have 2 like dinner plates I could use. When I was thrifting, I was on the hunt for 2 more and I couldn't find 2. So we'll see. But lots of pieces like this, another thrifted piece that are perfect for a tea party. The marches in the book are temperance people. They don't drink, but you will remember the scene where from the movies and also the book where Meg goes to the party and she has champagne. So I thought it might be fun to have a little sparkling wine with my friends. So these vintage pink champagne coupes are like perfect. And I thought a little bow tied on this would be lovely. And I'm imagining bows sort of everywhere, brass candlesticks. I'm hoping I have time to paint some flowers and hearts and things on the candlesticks, some kind of floral tablecloth, vintage cutlery. What am I forgetting? I also want to do some paper chains sort of hanging above the table. This trend was so hot this Christmas. So I actually ordered some floral scrapbook paper, and this is double-sided, so it should be really perfect. And I love the sort of handmade vibe that brings. So this book, Little Women, written by Louisa May Alcott, was the true story of her growing up. And you can still go to New England and see the house where she grew up in. And she was part of, because her parents were Transcendentalists. It was a religious movement at that time. There were some really famous Transcendentalists. Her parents were part of the movement, and you see the influence of it in her book. And part of their belief was that like nature was really important. They were kind of wild and carefree. And in the movie, the mom talks about how she doesn't believe in corsets for young women because they're too restrictive. And there's lots of scenes where they're in the garden or they're skating or they're at the beach. They really embraced nature. So I want to keep that kind of wild, unpretentious feeling to the tea. So even though there will be beautiful china and lots of pink, it will also have this sort of wild floral feel. At least that's what I'm hoping for. As an activity, we're gonna make some flower crowns. Now, unfortunately, it is winter here, March. There's still snow outside, so we'll pretend it's spring indoors, but it's really still snowy outside. So we're gonna use some dried flowers for that, which I think will work fine. I am so excited about this theme. I think it's gonna be beautiful, fun, a celebration of girlhood is what I wrote on the invitations. The book is beautiful. I'm really enjoying reading it for the first time, and I love the movies as well. So let's go celebrate the March Sisters. The theme for this month's party is Little Women. And I thought it'd be really cool to have an old copy of Little Women at everybody's place setting. And I thought this is a really old, popular book. It shouldn't be that hard to find it. I have found 2 so far at my 2 local thrift stores. I've checked about 3 times. The first time I checked, I found one, and then I was like, this is not going to be that hard. But actually, then I kept checking and not finding. Anyway, the last one I got is really musty. So we're going to do a little cleaning technique and see if we can revive it. Or if we can't, then it's going to be my copy. But today I want to go to my further away thrift stores and see if we can find 2 or 3, because that musty one, hardcover copies of the book. So fingers are crossed. Here's me at my 3rd store. I've been to one big thrift store, then the antique mall, and then this thrift store where I finally found one. And here I am at my 6th thrift store, and I finally found another one. So that gives me 4.
This is the book that's really musty, so we're going to try this trick we saw online. We're going to seal it up with some baking soda and pop it in the freezer. That should kill anything. And we'll check it right before the party and see if it's smelling better. Hopefully, it will be. One of my hosting tips is to preset your table, but because I'm hosting in the kitchen for this party and I'm going to need my kitchen table to make all the sandwiches and prep the food, I can't set the table ahead. So I thought, let me do a dry run and try and decide which plates, which napkins. I'm kind of spoiled for choice because I have a big vintage collection and lots of options. I also couldn't decide whether I wanted the books at each place setting or stacked in the middle. So I took some pictures and I thought I can think about this later and look at the pictures and make my decision so I don't feel rushed the day of the actual party. One of my little DIY projects for the party was to hand paint some candlesticks with little flowers. I just used regular white candles and regular acrylic craft paint, a couple shades of pink and a couple shades of green, and they turned out really cute. I started setting up my little sister vignette, and I also wanted to do a gallery wall on the back. So I laid out my pieces on my table and then used some newspaper to work out their sizes and then taped the newspaper to the wall so I knew where to add the nails and hang my art. And then I rehung this pretty little ribbon lace bow garland. And then it was time to put my finishing touches on my sister's vignette. So I had an item that represented each sister. There was rolled up music sheets for Beth, the typewriter for Jo since she was a writer. Then I added some watercolors and paintbrushes to represent Amy, and we had the gloves and the thread to represent Meg. I also made all these pretty paper chains and tied ribbon onto the chandelier.
Update on the Musty book. She's still musty. She was in the freezer. She was in the baking soda. I took it out to check on her progress, and I had it sitting on the table, and it was like making the whole room stink. So she's out in the garage. I'm one short of my books. Maybe everybody won't want one, or maybe I will not have one and I will get it from the library or keep my eyes peeled in the future for one. But musty book transformation, fail.
I picked up some fresh flowers the morning of the party. I went with some miniature daffodils, some pink tulips, and these wax flowers. I really like the addition of the wax flowers because I wanted these arrangements to look a little wild and carefree, and they really added that vibe. I arranged them in some little glass vintage bottles that I already had, and I liked that they were just small arrangements and I could dot them all over the table and around the house as well. Then it was time to set the table for the party. I went with this green and white gingham tablecloth and layered on these pretty white frilly placemats that I found at the thrift store. I added my candles in brass candlestick holders. I used the Little Women party favors as the centerpiece, so I piled those in the center and then put the vases on top. I used some pink glass plates and vintage cutlery and some mismatched floral napkins, and then I layered on those beautiful vintage teacups, and everything was looking really beautiful. The final detail was to add the flowers to the table, and the table was ready. I set up a craft station in the living room with dried flowers, ribbon, and wire to make our floral crowns, and then we also had the movie playing in the background for the perfect vibes. Come back tomorrow for part 2 to see the book-inspired menu. Be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you for making life a party with me.